Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for February 4th, 2025. I'm going to talk today about the fraud of Ukrainian democracy. Of course, you've been hearing about the fight, supposedly, to defend freedom and democracy in Ukraine and to prevent Putin and the evil Russians from overrunning Europe. These are stories that are completely fraudulent, and I'll show you in the case of Ukrainian democracy in a minute how this is being spun to justify the spending of hundreds of billions of dollars in a war which has as its intention weakening Russia to clear the way for the continuation of an imperial unipolar order. Now, the idea that we're protecting Europe from being overrun by Putin and the idea that there's democracy in Ukraine are produced by the intelligence community on behalf of the war party, the military-industrial financial complex, which wants that money for its own purposes, but more importantly, wants to weaken Russia because it sees Russia as a threat to the unipolar order. And that threat is not a Russian military threat, but the emergence of the BRICS as an alternative economic development perspective for the whole world. Now, it's worth noting that Zelensky himself has said that $100 billion of the money voted for Ukraine is not accounted for, and he said it never got to Ukraine. Well, given the corruption in that country, it's not surprising. But if it's true, then perhaps this would be a cause for an investigation by the hoped-for new director of the FBI, Kash Patel, a first case, assuming he's confirmed. Now, let me tell you about Ukrainian democracy. First of all, Zelensky's term is over. Under the Constitution, he's no longer president. Yet he canceled elections. He's shut down 11 opposition parties and many of the press that are related to them. So what he's doing is holding on to the presidency against the Constitution. Now, of the 11 parties that have been banned, the leaders of at least 3 of them are facing charges from the National Agency for Corruption Prevention. Now, the reason is they're trying to get a criminal conviction against the party leaders so they can't run for president. Now, in this case, if you have a criminal record, or in these cases, if there's a criminal record, the candidate can be excluded from appearing on the ballot, assuming there's election. Now, not only would they be banned from running in the future, but their property can be seized, and essentially they would be canceled as a political leader and as a person. And some of the opposition figures have been jailed. Now, I know one of the targeted opposition party leaders, Natalia Vitrenko, who I've met on several occasions. She's an economist, she's a friend of the Schiller Institute and of Helga Zepp-LaRouche, and she's a leader of the banned Progressive Socialist Party of Ukraine. She and her party are accused of administrative violations, which is bogus. For example, one of the accusations against them is that they didn't file a report with the Election Commission. But as a banned party, what is there to file? They have no income, they have nothing to report. The real charge is that they're, quote, pro-Russian. Now, interestingly, in 1999, as a candidate for president, Natalia received 11% of the vote. So she's hardly an unknown figure or a marginal figure in Ukraine. But the corruption court keeps postponing her case, and in the meantime, she's in a kind of limbo where she can't run, her party's not able to function. And this is supposedly the democracy that you're contributing to with your tax dollars. Again, it should be noted it's over $200 billion so far from the U.S. alone that's supposedly been allocated for this war. And of course, the other point is the war is lost. the Ukrainian forces are being decimated. And the idea that this is going to continue indefinitely to be a stalled war, like the Korean War, it's just not going to work. Now, what should happen is that Trump should meet with Putin. They should reach an agreement based on the proposal that Putin made in December 2021 for mutual security guarantees, Ukraine not going into NATO, protection in the Donbass. Now, that's no longer possible. Those areas have been already annexed and voted on and voted for membership in the Russian Federation. So it's important that that be noted and that Ukraine accept that. And the idea that this changes borders in Europe, this is unacceptable. Well, I hate to tell you this, European Union, but that's something called democracy. And if the people in those areas voted to become part of the Russian Federation, then what are you going to do? Say that, no, we're going to dictate that you stay in Ukraine? The Ukraine that was shooting into those areas and killing 14,000 people, banning the use of the Russian language, shutting down the Russian Orthodox Church, that's democracy and freedom? This just exposes the abject hypocrisy of the European Union. And this is why the political parties of Europe are losing left and right, that the existing establishment is in a shambles. And so it's going to be in part up to the Trump administration to reach a settlement, to enforce a settlement on Ukraine. And under those circumstances, with the end of the war, then it brings up the whole question of, can the U.S. and the West coexist with the BRICS and the alternative development system which is emerging as part of a new paradigm? That would be the basis for real peace. That's what we've been fighting for, and that's what could happen. Now, it's in this context that I urge you to look in the description section at the report from the Executive Intelligence Review on the fight of Natalia Vitrenko and her party in Ukraine, to see that the story of peace and democracy and freedom is a fraud cooked up by the same people who were telling you that Tulsi Gabbard is a Putin agent and that Kash Patel is a wacko. Now, when talking about Patel and Gabbard, among the other things we're watching today, the Senate committees may vote by later today on the nomination of Gabbard and also the nomination of Robert Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services. So that's something we're watching. Also in Washington today, Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been indicted as a war criminal, is meeting with President Trump. Hopefully Trump is going to read him the Riot Act, because what Netanyahu has proposed, there's no way it can be done except through war. Do the American people want to finance a war of extermination against the Palestinians? I don't think so. I think if people knew the actual story, there's no way that Netanyahu would be greeted as a hero, but instead as the criminal that he is. So we'll have full reports on these stories tomorrow and more. In the meantime, read the story of this Ukraine fight. It's urgent because it will show you the extent to which the Liars Bureau has been producing a narrative which is completely false, but which is designed to keep you passive as hundreds of billions of your taxpayers' dollars are going to a war which has brought us at times close to nuclear confrontation with Russia. So that's my report for this morning. If you have time today, and you should make time, call your senators to ensure that they vote to confirm Gabbard, Patel, and RFK Jr.